at some point we're going to break, because we can't keep having, every single child having every single website pre-picked or pre-planned for them, as well as every book, is an impossibility, and it's not going to work in education. So and again, this is a longer debate, but I think that kind of stuff is what's adding on to the plates of teachers and adding on to the plates of leaders, that's just causing us all to kind of feel kind of stressed out about things. Welcome back, everybody. We are back. It is season 5. Where's the DJ air horn? Burr, 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 burr.
There we go. There
it is. This is Carl and Adam. We are back for UnDisruptEd season 5, folks. We made it. We're still, we lost our bets. We're still alive and well and kicking with this podcast. Sorry for those of you that don't like to listen, but if you don't like to listen, guess what? You're not listening anyway.
Our mamas like listening to us, so that's what matters. We have the mother's love of this podcast. It is the number 1 podcast featuring Adam and Carl. I will stake my name to that. It's the number 1 Adam and Carl podcast about educational technology on the interwebs.
And I would say that one of our largest demographics is the over 70 mom group, because yes, your mom and my mom both listen. So that definitely takes 2 out of, I don't know how many in that group.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're good. So we have to keep it clean, Adam, because the moms are listening. So our opening debate, is it over? Is COVID over?
You know what? I think we did. I think we voted sometime and decided that it was over, because that's what we're doing now. Mask mandates have been lifted. Woo woo. You actually were on a flight when it happened,
yes.
Right?
That was surreal. So first of all, the most liked and retweeted tweet of my career, which is really depressing to say, but I was on a plane from Atlanta, from your town, to Austin. I was on a connecting flight, and gets right when we're getting ready to take off out of the gate, the pilot comes on. He's like, "Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me? All right. Mask mandates lifted." And then he hung up the phone and went back into his cabin, and everybody just started cheering, and some people were like kind of booing, and there was I saw a flight attendant actually with tears in her eyes, because she just talked about how she was, because I always talk to flight attendants when I get on.
Yeah.
And she was like, she's been fighting with people about it lately. And I was like, oh my gosh. She was just like relieved. And then I posted a picture of myself with a mask on my chin with my eyes kind of wide open going, what just happened? And next thing you know, man, it turned into a whole deluge of other tweets. And then of course, people tried to take it over and make it political. And I was like, delete, block.
Yeah, which is a crazy thing that we deal with, of course. We're talking about the mask, but of course, in education, everything ultimately becomes political. I mentioned this last season. In November, we're having major elections here in Georgia. I know you guys have some stuff going down there in Texas as well.
Yep.
And so it's always a thing. Everything becomes political. It could be weight loss, and that's going to become political.
Yeah. What did you do to lose weight lately? Well, I chose this one. How dare you? Yes. Yeah. So
speaking of weight loss, we're doing a little something. The listeners may not know about it. We have a little weight loss challenge right now. Unlike everyone else, I know you and we were able to put on a COVID-19.
We times 2 maybe for me. I don't know. I was talking to my wife about this yesterday. I was like, man, I felt like in November I was at a certain weight, and then I woke up in like late January, and I was like, what just happened? I put on another like almost 15, 20 pounds just over that from Thanksgiving, December. We always put on weight anyway, but it was a lot. Yes. It's time for that to end. So listeners are now listening to me. I'm in mid or near the end of a juice cleanse, which I've never done. I'll spare you some of the gory details, but you know what? It's not been bad. Yeah, it's not been too bad. You get 5 or 6 juices in the mail, and these are not a sponsor, so I'm not even going to mention the name of the company. But every time I feel hungry, I just grab a juice. And so I will say I've just a lot of trips to the restroom. So just know that if you're ever doing these, but it squeezes all the liquid out of your body, essentially. What are you doing? What's your trick? What's your style? How are you trying to keep the weight off? Besides those great smoky bourbon drinks, that's a different liquid diet.
different kind of diet. The big thing that I've been working on right now is just getting more active. I know one thing that kind of happened to me with some of the COVID stuff is all these virtual meetings, Zoom meetings about meetings in the workplace. So I've been, doing more time sitting. So I've been trying just to be more active now. Just get out. Kids are playing soccer. get out, get sweaty, and then as I tell the kids, smell like outside.
Yep.
Get in the
Oh
shower.
yeah.
And so my biggest thing is trying to get a little bit more active, especially us technology people. We get hooked on technology. Sometimes we are behind screens a lot, so you got to take some time and walk. You know what? Here's a suggestion: get out, download a podcast. Like
Like this one.
something called the UnDisruptEd podcast featuring Adam and Carl, did a more podcast with Adam and Carl, and listen to it. You can get a nice 30-minute workout in listening to our podcast. That's what I'm doing. That's what I suggest.
And hopefully we'll have you smiling, laughing, and people going, "What is that person doing walking down the street, laughing to themselves as they walk?" But yes, I love that idea. I do listen to quite a bit of podcasts while I walk too. I'm doing the same thing, Adam. We got a new puppy, much like you. We had a pandemic puppy, so we've been walking the dog. The kids are supposed to walk the dog, but you know how that turns out. It's me that walks the dog, but to get an extra mile or two in, that's always good.
Well, here's the thing, though. Be careful walking your dog. You make sure you clean up after your dog, because the last thing you want to do is have your dog have an accident on somebody else's yard. And then your neighbor walks out and does a Will Smith. It's like, keep your dog off my lawn. And you just get smacked in the face. You don't want that to happen. So make sure.
Well, that was another interesting thing since our hiatus. Yeah, Will Smith's career kind of ended. That was weird. I didn't have that on the bingo card, COVID bingo card, by the way. I'm not. We're not going to rehash this controversy because now it's about a month out from it, and who knows where he'll end up in life. And I don't feel, if he ends up, not ever acting again. I think he had a great career, and I think you can separate the act. This is always a tricky question, Adam. How do you fall in this? Because I'll play people will come into a workshop I'll be doing, and I have like Michael Jackson playing. I love Michael Jackson, love the music. Excuse me. Yeah. So how do you separate the artist from the art? I know like Bill Cosby, another one. I was thinking about best sitcoms ever. And if I say, well, the Cosby Show, I used to watch that as a kid all the time. I love that show. And like, everyone's like, ugh. Like, no, it was a good, yes.
Yeah.
But
you got to, at some point, you have to be able to separate between the two, like I said, the art and the artist, or what they did versus what they've done. It's that balance. And I think becoming more educated allows us to do that. Everything is not always black and white. And I think in education, at times we get so caught up, with the political side of things right now, where it's this or that. Sometimes you need to understand why this occurred. It's not necessarily two-siding an issue. It's just understanding why this happened. Even here in the South, understanding why someone wanted to fight for slavery. It wasn't ultimately the fact that I think black people are horrible and they should always serve me. Somehow or another, those folks thought that they were fighting for the right thing to keep people enslaved. Not excusing that behavior, horrible behavior, but understanding why they wanted to do that is better for us as a society, because we can keep that from happening. If you understand why someone would want to do something so horrible, it's better than now you can figure out how to stop it from happening in the future. If you just, say they're bad and keep it going without solving the root cause of the issue, we're never going to get any better. And that's just my soapbox moment. You got to understand to get better.
I agree. And I think that's kind of the danger of what's happening in some of the circles in education, where we have the different groups for whatever reason, they want to get rid of things. They want to ban certain things. What's your take on, how do you feel just in general about banning? I'm not going to say a topic of any time, because you could fill in the blank, banning blank. Banning McDonald's and banning Chick-fil-A, on Sundays. So to ban or not to ban, where do you feel like, as a tech person, we have to look at things and block certain things, and I guess ban certain things. And my old school district actually was in the news recently because they are they have a group of parents trying to ban YouTube. It's like, I feel like this is 2012. Like, we've started over again in some ways. Not to make light of it, but again, I want to understand what their reasoning is, and is it a value add for the students, that kind of stuff. So, what are your thoughts on ban or not to ban?
Well, going back to what I was mentioning earlier. One, we need to understand why those individuals would want to ban this thing. That dialogue and conversation has to be had. As soon as you immediately say, "Oh, those parents are crazy," or "They're doing all this, they're against us," you've cut off all points of dialogue. So you definitely should come in there with an open ear to really listen, to understand where they're coming from. Because if I don't understand where you're coming from, then we can't come to some kind of resolution. because they're automatically coming in thinking that we're against them. It's us versus them. That
Right.
can't be our frame of thinking. But when it goes to like banning, especially like the internet and books specifically, in my current role, I also oversee the library media services. And we haven't had anything, knock on wood, where parents are trying to ban any books yet. But I don't know who said this. So whoever said it, I'm borrowing your phrase. It was libraries are like a grocery store. You don't have to buy everything on the shelf. If you don't like spicy foods, you never have to go down on the spicy food section. If you're got dairy issues, you never have to touch the dairy. You just get the almond milk or the lactate or whatever it is. You never have to touch the milk. So in a public school library, you can have books that have all various topics that you may agree with or disagree with. It doesn't mean you have to read it. It doesn't mean it's for you. It may be for somebody else. Same thing when you start talking about the internet. Once we block the 7 deadly sins and maybe a few little things that districts don't want users to go to, by and large, it's about teaching them that the information is out there. They were talking about some things here in Georgia where we're supposed to be able to now, or as a parent, I can tell a district what websites I want my kid to have access to and not have access to. And I have no idea how we can manage that piece. So that's when I think is getting kind of ridiculous.
And that I think is a core issue that I have. The YouTube thing, that's interesting. Let's have a discussion about it. I do think, everything, you're right. We need to listen. I think as stakeholders or as leaders, you need to keep your ears open and hear what's happening out there. I don't think we need to do knee-jerk reactions and start blocking things holistically just because, like you said, just because one mom or dad decided, I don't want that in my house or whatever. So keeping that kind of in mind, I think it comes down to, looking at what can we do as leadership, but also, at some point we're going to break because we can't keep having, every single child having every single website pre-picked or pre-planned for them, as well as every book is an impossibility, and it's not going to work in education. So and again, this is a longer debate, but I think that kind of stuff is what's adding on to the plates of teachers and adding on to the plates of leaders. That's just causing us all to kind of feel kind of stressed out about things. But
well, I think one thing we need to do a better job of as school systems and as technology leaders is really informing stakeholders. We throw the term stakeholders around. I'm just going to say parent, guardians, whoever is responsible for the children that we have in our system. We really need to do a better job of letting them know what structures we currently have in place, how we are providing digital citizenship resources to the students and to the families that can support this stuff, because education is key. I mean, we're in the business of education. So we need to educate our parents, our families, our guardians, whomever, on the safety nets that we have in place, but then also that piece that they need to have conversations with their child about to kind of help them make better choices. Because I think if we let some of these talking heads make it seem as though we're out to brainwash their kids or get them to porn. I mean, I literally heard someone talking about the Galileo book resource site that there's porn on there. It's like, come on, really? You think kids are really going to Galileo, going through 50 different ways to get to something inappropriate? No, they're going to pull out their cell phone to get to whatever they want to. It's inappropriate.
50 different ways to Galileo. That seems like a book. Or is that 50 Shades of Galileo? No.
I mean, nobody's doing that. No one. But it's just really having those conversations and understanding, okay, that's what you think. Well, let's show you how they actually are using it. Let's talk about the positive resources that are there, or better ways to safeguard those things that you don't want your kid to get to. So let's kind of have those conversations and work together versus it being look like, okay, you're trying to tell us how to do our job. And because ultimately that's what it is. We're feeling as educators, you're trying to tell us how to do our job. Right. And as a parent, you're saying, hey, my job is to raise this kid, and I feel as though you're trying to raise my kid for me by indoctrinating them to whatever. So it's that two sides of it that you have to kind of understand in order to move forward. I'm trying to be as very PC as possible with that.
I like that. Yeah, you handled that very deftly, by the way. I'm very impressed with you. Because I think another part of this is, freedom of speech is always brought up, or cancel culture, or whatever the next thing
Oh
is.
gosh.
And we just had a recent thing happen in the news with Elon Musk, who Adam has said years ago is the next Bond villain, and he's closing in on that because now he's bought
Yeah.
Twitter. And someone said they should call it MySpace X. I love that meme. Um, and
The
it's
funniest one I saw, he was going to buy all the McDonald's and fix the ice cream machines.
right. And then I can't tell if that's a meme or if that's because now people are putting out all sorts of memes. Like, next thing I'm going to do is buy Facebook and shut it down. Um, so I don't, it's funny because it's, whenever something like this happens, people like immediately evaluate, okay, let's talk about what we're doing on social media and why we're doing it. And this, I mean, I talked about this at the end of the last season. We started a platform called K12leaders.com. And so being someone who's now building, it's interesting because I've watched all these stuff from the lens of a user and as a parent and as a teacher. But now as a creator, I'm looking at like, what do I want to design this social media platform to be like? And I don't want it to be one of those things where like the users become the products. And so we're not pulling data. We're not doing any of that stuff. We want it to be conversational. So, but I can see why they fall into that trap, and all of a sudden they hire all these companies and they want to, all this other stuff. So with Musk buying
even that interesting terminology with users. I was listening to, I gotta get a better memory with where I'm getting all my stuff from.
Quote the source. Quote the source, Adam.
Yes, it was a source, but it was talking about how with users, we also use that terminology for people on drugs. If you're an addict, you're a user. So when you talk about technology, why do we call the people who are in this space users versus consumers or producers or customers? It's you are a user. So right. You're hooked on it. So that's the whole thing when you start talking about Twitter and this whole algorithms. And I've seen even some stuff coming out now about they need to start publishing and producing what algorithms that they're utilizing to feed you content, because they can shape where you go shop, who you vote for, what you believe. Is like we're talking about banning resources. So your thoughts on the argument or the debate on banning resources is going to be shaped by social media based on an algorithm of who your friends are, your political affiliation. So you're going to see those articles and things to feed your what they perceive your thought process is to then shape your argument. So, it needs to be a little bit more transparency on how this is done. Who you're seeing in your newsfeed, whether it's on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Those are those things that I think the user, quote unquote, doesn't understand because you're being fed this stuff, and the only thing you can do is just take it.
I totally, I don't know if this is, there's probably some data around this too, but I'd say anecdotally, I 100% agree with you because I've seen it recently. I had a couple of friends who I hadn't seen in probably 6 months or a year that we got to connect with and talk to. And politically we were different sides, but not very much differently. We were probably center, but they kind of go one way and I kind of go a little more another way. And as we were talking, it was interesting because like all of a sudden one of them was just telling me all these stories about like, oh, I think this and this, and what do you think about kids, teachers teaching kids about this critical race stuff? And I was like, I go, where are you hearing all, and it's just interesting because I want them to go back and like talk to, like I asked them, I was like, well, are you getting 3 sources about this? Like, where are you getting your information from? I'd love to hear more about it. Like, have you actually seen it happening? It's like, well, no, they're doing it and I heard about it. And I was like, okay, so who and where and why? And I realized the more that maybe the pandemic really added to this, but I feel like it caused us to force ourselves into our echo chamber. We quit going out and talking with people of diverse thought. We started to only follow the people that we follow. And then the algorithms added onto that to create what you just called that big giant echo chamber. My dog is like going crazy in the, can you hear her back there? She's like yelping behind me. Okay. That's like,
she has some very serious thoughts on critical race theory right now. And she
gets angry. She gets angry when I talk about it. She starts growling and barking. It's like, she doesn't want to talk about Google. She wants to talk about Dogpile. Remember that back in the day.
Oh gosh. But that's the thing though, because I know there's people who I haven't seen on my feed in a while. And I'm like, okay, did they just like drop off of Facebook or drop off of Twitter? And then when I go look for them, they've still been posting, but it just hasn't come in my feed anymore because the beast decided that's not what I needed to see. So I didn't see that. And to your point, they just thought a little bit differently than I did. So that's ultimately why you're not seeing that stuff. So those are those things that you brought up a good point with being now in the pandemic, getting in that echo chamber, and even what we have, like this podcast, how many podcasts were created over the past 2 years to now provide those people who feel that kind of way, that space. And now I can follow and listen to people who are reaffirming my current beliefs. And this hole is going to start getting deeper and deeper instead of us getting a better understanding of things. For example, going back to Elon Musk, we need to all understand that he is Samuel L. Jackson's villain character off of Kingsman. I mean, if you haven't seen the movie Kingsman, watch Kingsman, and you'll see the direct correlation between what Elon Musk is doing.
Is this what your doctoral thesis was about? He's Dr. Adam Pyle, folks, because he proved that Elon Musk is actually the Samuel Jackson character in the Kingsman. Okay, I've got to watch this movie this weekend.
When it happens, I'll be like, I told you.
We were just getting through.
Rack the tape right now. Rack it.
Speaking of things that find on your feed, yesterday, I don't know if you saw this, but Ken Shelton, good friend of ours, posted something about this Juneteenth celebration in Arkansas. Did you see that? It was posted and canceled quickly. People still haven't figured it out. It was like
some things need to be canceled. That was definitely one of those things that need to be canceled. And here's the thing: I was talking with some folks about Juneteenth, and as it became more of a widely known celebrated holiday, I joked with some of my friends and I said, this is how you know Juneteenth has made it as a holiday, when it becomes a mattress sale. Where you have your mattress firm Juneteenth
or a Hallmark card. Sale. Is there a Hallmark cards for Juneteenth? I just wanted to say happy Juneteenth. I mean, how do you celebrate? Yeah, I mean, yeah. When the Hallmark cards are out, then you know it.
They'll have that. They'll have the appliance sale, Juneteenth appliance sale. Get your Frigidaire.
That's right. It's Black Friday. Wait, sorry. We're not allowed to say that. Okay. Well, finally.
I think ultimately, but this kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier about that whole understanding both sides and having the conversations. If you don't talk about race, if you don't talk about political affiliations, you don't talk about religion, then you end up having individuals that go out there with the best intentions and totally miss the mark. Right. You have to have the conversation. You have to have the dialogue. You have to have better understanding. Otherwise, you're going to go out there half-cocked and miss the mark totally. And so that's why it's so important to not cancel the cancel culture piece. So once again, some events need to be canceled.
Yeah. Keep that event out of my back to the Will Smith. Gotta just keep going. Which I think all of this noise, and it's fun. I mean, we laugh about it and we try to poke fun at it. Probably, for you, the listeners, we're trying to do this to kind of say like, okay, let's make light of it, but also, drop some knowledge and think, all right, yeah, maybe there's some, what are these people thinking? What is their background? But I talked to a teacher a couple of weeks ago in San Diego. I was at an event, and she said she called it the two sides of a door policy when it comes to teaching. I said, "What is that?" And she said, "Everything that happens inside my classroom, inside my door, I love. I love the kids. I love teaching. I love all that." She says, "Everything that happens outside of that door is noise, and it's causing me to absolutely lose my mind. And I'm looking for other employment because it's the politicization of stuff, leadership micromanagement. It's the lack of pay, lack of support, lack of value." Has caused teachers just to feel like they're done. And I don't know what the answer is, but I've been sounding the alarm as loud as I can. And actually, speaking of podcasts, I just started a new podcast called Forward to Different. You'll have to hear that soon. Adam will be a guest. Just to tackle that very topic of what's going to happen if this 50% of burnout actually happens. And let's say it's even less than that. Let's say it's 30%. Replacing 30% of teachers when you have a pipeline that's dried up. 35% of colleges are now, they've seen a decrease of 35% of pre-service people, or students taking pre-service classes in college. So we have less people coming in. We have more people leaving. I mean, at some point, this might come to a head. So what do you think? Are you worried? Are you concerned? I mean, you're still working at a school district, Adam. I lost my bet.
But yeah, it's one of those things we're seeing. And I don't want to make it a larger issue than it already is, but understanding that education is not unique. It is a reflection of where we are today. Because if you walk out right now and go shopping, everybody's hiring. They can't find people to work at McDonald's, Target, the mailman. You go in some restaurants that are open now, their restrooms are closed because they don't have people to work the front end and actually keep the restaurant clean. So we
Right.
ultimately just have an employment issue in the U.S. And I think it kind of goes back to the shutdown. Um, People realize that I don't have to get up and work every day at this job. There's other things that I could possibly do to earn revenue, to earn income, or I could start living below my current level that I'm at right now. I could downsize. I don't have to do all these other things, and I could still survive. So talking with some folks in education, they've actually told me that. They're like, hey, Adam, you know what? I was grinding, I was doing all this stuff, but then I realized, you know what? I can do something else, or I can work remotely. There's a lot of
Yep.
opportunities to work remotely. I can pick and choose my hours that I do. And you know what? At some point, maybe that may fizzle out and they may come back. But right now they're exploring their options, which should be commended, that
Yeah.
somebody has said, you know what, I want to try to do something different. And if I fail, at least I had an opportunity, because I know taking opportunities and failing is something that you know a lot about.
Yeah.
Not that you're a failure or anything, but you could write a book on it. Matter of
I almost
fact.
could. Matter of fact, I see it right there in the corner for those of you watching this podcast. So yeah, doing remote work. I mean, I think that's a big part of it. Yeah, I think we all got adjusted to a different lifestyle of where we were living, and how is your OnlyFans account working? By the way, Adam, are you making a lot of money on that, or?
You know what? Pretty good. I mean, you'd be surprised the number of people who are into like man's knuckles. You know, um,
Yeah,
people
that's
just
right.
want
Follow
to look
at
at my
Ask Adam's
knuckles.
Knuckles on OnlyFans. I don't even know if that's a thing. We may have just invented it. Right. So, I mean, that flexibility gets introduced into their life, and then all of a sudden we go quote unquote back to normal, which is why I hate using that phrase and say forward to different. And all of a sudden, teachers, especially, that's the number one reason they're leaving is because the lack of respect and value. But the number two reason is the lack of flexibility. Their schedule is very rigid. Whereas during the pandemic, they discovered there was some flexibility there. They could have kids learning at different times. They could do small groups. They could do remote. They could do. So all of a sudden, we're back into this regular system of the 8-hour day, and
And I
maybe
think
that
they
needs
also
to change.
realized they could go to the bathroom at any point in time through the
Right.
day. I think that's the hardest thing that educators had to figure out, was like how to, when they go back to work, to only go to the bathroom one or two times a day. That was totally different, because they're like, oh my gosh, my bladder tells me to go and I
You're
can just go.
you're killing me, man. I'm juicing right now, and you're talking about going to the bathroom. I was so good, and now I'm like thinking, oh, hold on, let me drink this water.
Yeah. But it's always like the funniest thing I know.
Uh,
Like for me, when I get my digital learning coaches or whatever, normally it's someone who's just in the classroom that's coming out. And it's like a prison scene when we're eating lunch for the first time. Like, and they
you
have like an hour.
slide.
They're like sitting there trying to whip their food down. Like they're
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
like I gotta pick up my kids. I gotta pick up my kids. Like, no, you're not in the classroom anymore. It's okay. So, but that whole mentality that you have to quote unquote get out of the classroom in order to have a normal job is the problem why I think some people are leaving, because it's like, I want to be normal. I want to be able to enjoy a lunch. I want to
right.
be able to, hey, I have to go to the bathroom. Let me go. Those are those things that, going back to that respect piece, and even the correlation between the Amazon workers, because that was like one of the big things with some of the Amazon workers wanting to unionize and strike and all this stuff, because they wanted to be able to go to the bathroom.
Right. The gift of time. I mean, it's interesting because you can make more money, but you can't make more time, right? I mean, that's something that's
Yep.
priceless. And so, whenever I was doing an event last week. I was doing a keynote and talking about how I still substitute teach, and when I started mentioning it, the audience, the teachers started cheering. They're like, as administrators, you should go into the classroom and take over every now and then, give a teacher a break. And it was amazing because the administrators gave me this look like, oh, great. Now, what did you suggest? And I was like, seriously, if you just took 1 or 2 hours a semester, even, and went into some teacher's classroom and said, you know what, you go take a break, go have coffee, go have an adult lunch. Teachers crave that. I know Teacher Appreciation Week is coming up. I mean, while we're recording this, and it's people are like, oh, I'll give them gift cards. Yeah, that's great. They love that. That's good too. But man, if you went in, I would say if you're a parent listening to this right now or an administrator listening to this right now, if you could take like an hour or two and just say, hey, tell a teacher next week I'm coming in. I'm going to be there from 8 to 10 or whatever. I'm going to take over your class, and just you go take a break, go somewhere else. I mean, go, like I
Yeah.
said, go to a coffee shop and do what normal people do. I think that might help a little bit
Yeah.
of that
Go to the
stress.
Applebee's.
Go to Yeah, go to Chili's, go to Applebee's, go to Zaxby's. No, yes.
But
Well,
but even with that though, you're having leaders that are leaving too,
yeah,
and leaders have a lot to do with what happens in the building. So if the leadership is leaving, and the teachers are leaving, it's going to put us in dire straits. So we have to figure out some kind of ways to keep leaders doing what they're doing, supporting those buildings, even within the technology space. We know several of our peers who are some pretty darn good technology leaders are leaving. Some of them are retiring a little bit, earlier. Some of them are just deciding to go in the private sector and do some things over there. So, present company, included. So we got to figure out ways to keep those people there, or at least keep them in education to some degree, so they can pour into some of these new tech folks that are coming up.
Right. I think I saw a statistic in Texas. There was the largest turnover in the history of administration just happened. And it was in January, which is weird because usually it happens over the summer. So you had tons of superintendents, tons of like curriculum soups, everything, tech directors leaving their roles. They were just done. They just said early retirement. I'm walking out. A really good friend of mine is someone that you and I both know. Just quit essentially at a school district, and he's a progressive leader. And I texted a friend of mine who works for him. I was like, "What happened? Why did he quit?" And he's like, "Well, the board got the best of him. They just decided that he was too progressive and some of his ideas weren't what they wanted, and so they basically pushed him out." And that, I think, or he basically said, "I'm done with you, and I'll take my talents to South Beach or something." But just a quote, an old LeBron quote. And I don't blame him, and I don't blame the leadership for that too. So it scares me because, again, we just talked about the teacher pipeline's dry, or it's drying up. That means your leadership pipeline is definitely dry because you get your leaders from your teachers generally. Mm-hmm. And if both of those are drying out at the same time, it's going to be interesting what happens in the future to keep people intact. And maybe we'll start to see some real progress happen because people are not scared anymore. Like, what are you going to do? Fire me? Because there's no one else that you can have to replace me, right? I mean, ain't no one else taking this job.
Be good or bad.
Yeah, that's true. There could be some bad things happening because people are like, I don't care because I can't get fired. But I'm hoping someone will take that
advantage. I'm going to give these
say,
worksheets. What you going to do? Fire me?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I know, as much as I'm like, the worksheets, but no, we got to change that. So, well, we don't want to leave everybody on a sad note. I mean, we this has been good. We probably need to split this into 2 podcasts, honestly, because it's been good to get back with you, my friend, and chat about stuff. I know we've got some exciting things looking forward to this season. We're going to bring in some different folks, of course, as always, interesting guests. And then I think at last we'll be together again, like the first time since, I think, Virginia.
Yeah. At last.
Wow, that just got real awkward. That's my OnlyFans account.
I'm gonna tell my wife I was singing "At Last" to a hooker.
Where's the rim shot? The drum roll's up there. ISTE. So this season, folks, come see us at ISTE, as we will be somewhere podcasting live, maybe in our hotel room. That sounds really weird. Don't do that.
Yeah.
We'll be podcasting live somewhere on the ISTE area. I think hopefully by the bookstore, I think we're planning. We would love to have all of you that are listeners come by, say hi. Maybe you'll be a guest on the show for a minute. We'll promote that kind of over the next few episodes as these come out, because we're gearing up for that moment in New Orleans when we all get back together, and it's in New Orleans and it's 108 degrees and we haven't seen each other in 3 years, and who knows what'll happen.
And if you come by, bring us some beads. We will do our best to earn some beads as we are broadcasting. So bring your beads to the UnDisruptEd podcast live. Just bring your beads.
Creative ways to earn the beads, not the traditional way. So, okay. Well,
what traditional way? I don't know what you're talking about, Mr. Hooker.
I always like to go bend the rules a little bit. So we will maybe we'll tell a limerick. Maybe we'll sing a lyric to an Etta James song. Who knows? Maybe
I'll show off my knuckles.
Adam will show you some knuckles. I'll show you my juice. No, I won't. No. But thank you all for joining us, and for the listeners out there, be sure to subscribe and give us a review. We do appreciate those reviews on iTunes, on Spotify. We're checking them out all the time. This has been the UnDisruptEd podcast, brought to you by Future Ready Schools. He's Adam, and you can follow him at AskAdam3.
And he's Carl, and you can follow him at Mr. Hooker. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, we are better together, and
we are better undisrupted.